What's the worst physical pain you have experienced? Snapping both my wrists at the same time. The right one ripped through my skin. On top of that, I had to get myself up and walk 50 yards to the closest help I could see. My friends and I got dumb on the monkey bars during recess. We were swinging back and forth, then releasing to see how far back we could fling ourselves. I aimed to be tall and was swinging so hard my thighs were hitting the other end of the bar from where I was holding. I released. The momentum pulled my legs up above me until I was upside down, falling directly onto my head and hands. I was so stunned by it I didn't feel any pain until I tried to get up. At that point my friends had already seen the bone cut through my flesh. They all freaked and booked. I'm assuming for help, though I don't remember many details. Just that long death walk of adrenaline and absolute horror. Cluster headaches, also known as suicide headaches, and for a good reason. Lots of people mentioned it, but migraines, particularly ophthalmic. Imagine the following. A small dot appears in your vision. You start to feel dread. You're blind now. Hope you got somewhere safe in 5-20 minutes. Buddy, nothing makes sense. You can't understand. You can't speak. The aura begins to fade, but the fun is only starting. You can see again. Still can't talk. There is pain. Pain when you move. Pain from lights. Pain from sound. There is pain and it feels like bugs are burrowing in your eyes. Alongside pain is numbness in your limbs. Alongside other stroke-like symptoms. You begin to question that if a god exists, whether or not he's worthy of your respect. You begin to vomit. Properly vomit. White girl wasted in a bar at 1 AM vomiting. The vomiting makes you move. This is a pretty big no-no for not being in a lot of pain. The ordeal begins to end. You sleep, pass out, and wake up a long time later with a splitting headache. A few hours later, you're totally fine. Frick migraines. Getting kicked in the left side of my face millimeters away from my eye and temple by a horse. He completely shattered my bones. They were pulling fragments out of my head for 3 hours during surgery. I also have a metal plate for an eye socket and upper cheek. It just happened back in November and I was out of work for 3.5 months. It happened on the job, so I still received a paycheck on workman's comp. Anyway, the pain was unfreaking real. They also drove me to the hospital instead of getting an ambulance, which could have given me something for the pain right away. So I had to endure a 35-minute ride while my head was bleeding heavily and the gash was so deep you could actually see my skull. It was gnarly. I didn't lose my eye or eyesight. Thank goodness. In 7th grade this girl came up and kneed me straight in the anus. I've experienced some serious pain before. Surgeries, broken bones, torn ligaments, etc. But something about this was different. I fell to the ground in excruciating pain and legitimately wouldn't speak to the girl for weeks. Felt like I got up by Superman. She said she didn't know why she did it, just had an impulse. What a big. Ovarian cyst. I had appendicitis 2 years ago, and I refused to go to the ER at first because I just thought it was menstrual pain. I didn't go until I had experienced the constant pain for 18+ hours. Yeah, it hurt like a bee, but nothing I've experienced compares to an ovarian cyst. I did exactly the same thing with my appendicitis. Also came here to say ovarian cyst, and I'm a sufferer of migraines clusters. Cyst is honestly more pain. Just luckily the worst is over quite quickly. Have also been told by a couple of women with kids over the years that they would rather give birth again than have an ovarian cyst. Had a spinal tap to check for meningitis. Pain was 11/10. In gave it a 4/10. Frick migraines. Had a few while a teen. Close behind is spilling super hot water on a couple toes. Anal fissure. There I said it. Was an issue for more than a year. It nearly ruined my life. And no, I never had butt frick. Pain from moving stone in kidney. Until my dad had stones I did not know something could hurt so bad it made you throw up. Falling off a tube at 70 miles per hour and having my bare butt shred across the water. It was like an extreme enema. My actual butt was destroyed in the process. I refused to sit down for weeks. That's a strange euphemism for anal. I fell into a cement mixer when I was 11. Cut my hands up pretty well. 3 words. Tore my Achilles. Achilles. Migraines. People who haven't had one won't know. Also very easy to just dismiss as a bad headache, when in reality you are completely incapacitated. Dumped a pot of boiling macaroni water all over myself. Thank you, aloe. Without counting the obvious pain that surgery leaves behind. Lower back muscle spasm. I couldn't walk. I couldn't stand up. I couldn't bend over nor move sideways. I couldn't even stand up without my own body's weight making me cry from the pain. Ingrown toenails. Had this when I was in middle school and into high school. One was getting really bad and infected, and while playing football, one of our offensive linemen stepped on it in his cleats. The pain was literally breathtaking. Prolapsing 2 discs in my lower back. That was unreal. Then the following few weeks after was constant pain. Even almost 3 years later it's still a bit uncomfortable at times. Dry socket after wisdom tooth extraction. Raw nerve exposed to the air food drink waves of angst from the universe. I know women who've given birth who say dry socket was worse. 12 Botox injections to my vag. It was to kill the nerves because I had chronic oversensitivity there. Migraines. And I'm not talking bad headaches. I mean paralysis, vomiting, that kind of crap. Runs in the women in my family. I had a hole in my tooth so large, it was basically hollow. It hurt for about 4 months before I had it removed, and during that time, the wonderful system that is the NHS didn't feel like providing me with any pain medication despite this evident hole in my tooth. I'm glad the pain medication epidemic that resides in the US at the moment isn't a problem in this country, but that was honestly the worst 4 months of my life. Something stronger than codeine would have been really nice. When I was 7 I had a bacterial infection get into my left eye called Pseudomonas. It ate away at my cornea, and I was in the worst pain I've ever experienced in my life, then and now. I may have been young, but I can still vividly remember that pain I went through. I've had contractions from being in labor, but this pain still tops all of that by far. I also think that's why I have such a high pain tolerance now, cause nothing compares to that pain I experienced. When I was 6 months pregnant I had a kidney stone cause a blockage. I was on a road trip with my boyfriend, now husband, and his brother. We had gone from NY to FL to visit my mom. On the way back home I was in the car and just couldn't get comfy. It was a dull pain. After we had stopped for the night at a motel I couldn't stop throwing up because the pain was so bad. It felt like a stabbing fire in my back. They took me to the hospital in TN and the doctors there said it was just a UTI. I've had UTIs before and it wasn't that, but I was young and assumed they knew better than I did. So we left and continued on our way home, me still in god awful pain and throwing up. As soon as we made it back to NY I went straight to the ER. I told them everything and they figured out it was a kidney stone that was stuck. They normally would have just used a laser thing, but because I was pregnant they didn't want to risk hurting the baby. For the next 5 days I was in a hospital bed getting pumped full of drugs and liquids. They wanted to see if I could pass it on my own. If I couldn't they were going to have to insert a stint to drain whatever fluids I had stuck in there. They were going to do that on the 5th day, but the night of the 4th day I finally passed it. It was bittersweet because it hurt like a mother sucker coming out, but then it was like instant relief when it did. Mom and baby were fine after that. So yeah, that was the most painful thing that has ever happened to me. Abscess tooth by far. I have snapped my ACL, broken my wrist, cut the top of my thumb off etc, but without a doubt abscessed tooth. Pain started the night before when I was flying back home, and by the time the plane landed I needed 6 Tylenol to just get by. By 3 AM I had to breathe through my nose because the wind from breathing in and out of my mouth hurt too much on my tooth. By 6 AM I was waiting for the dentist across the street to open, which did not open till 7 o'clock. However, the dentist showed up at 6:30. They shot me up with 4 Novocaines and pulled the tooth. Dentist said she did not take my insurance and it was $140. To this day it was the best $140 I ever spent and gladly would have paid $1,000 at the time. It hurt so bad it made me fear I have about 31 other teeth that could happen to again in my mouth, and that scared me for a few weeks. An abscessed tooth was such excruciating pain that even Vicodin barely helped. I say tooth pain is worse, but tinnitus is more annoying. Cystoscopy. Having my IUD put in. Had I known the reality of it I wouldn't have gotten it. Same here. Don't have kids, and I used to think I had a high tolerance with pain until I had the IUD from heck put in, passed out from the pain, and suffered from constant pain cramps from heck for about a week just to have the little sucker fall out in the shower. Talk about unfreaking necessary pain. The stomach cramps that accompany food poisoning. I'd rather break my wrist again than have that. Yes, same here. Easily gastrointestinal pain. You think you're going to die. Passed out once from the pain alone. Well, I was playing soccer when I was 10 with a few friends in the house of one. They had one big empty room. Think it was kind of a storage before. Socks only. Wanted to kick the ball and missed. Hit the ground with full drive. Didn't take long until I was screaming with pain and the socks went quite red. My parents were called and took me to the hospital, where they took a x-ray of my foot. Doctor was quite surprised, because he never saw someone hitting his own toenail so deep in the nail bed. I had a broken collarbone a few months later and it was nothing against that pain. I've broken a lot of bones, mostly sport related, left and right arms, multiple hand and foot fractures and broken fingers, but nothing compares to the time I shattered my cheekbone in a game of Aussie rules. I severed the nerve that services most of the left side of my face and so went into shock within minutes and had to have my face and nerves surgically reconstructed. All for free BTW, Australian healthcare. It was by far and away the most excruciating pain that I have ever experienced in my life. 0/10 would not recommend. Leg cramp while laying in bed. I've had stitches, broken bones, burns, etc. But that minute of pain tops them all. I forgot about those. The sheer horror of waking up frightened in the middle of the night, only to be greeted by the excruciating pain to quickly follow, lest we forget. Getting the numbing injections for my toenail surgery. It wasn't supposed to be painful, I'm told, but it felt like fire burning the bottom of my foot. They had to give me 4 of the shots. I was not a happy camper. Numbing shots are the worst. When I got my BC implant in my arm, I cried at the numbing shot. He injected me then proceeded to massage it into the rest of my arm. Luckily I didn't have to feel the 14-gram piece of plastic getting shoved into my arm. I watched it though, and that was gnarly. Probably ear infection. That crap hurts. Kidney stones. I'm 25 and I've had 3 already. The first instance was a long drawn out process. It began 6 months before I was diagnosed with the stones. I would work at pub on the weekends, running plates between the kitchen and tables, and I started to get backaches more and more frequently each weekend. One day whilst at college, I had to leave due to the pain in my back. Managed to drive home, but once through the door, I started projectile vomiting all over the place and got taken to the hospital. I was put on a bed and given many adult doses of morphine. Lying on the bed, it was near impossible to get comfortable. It was like constantly lying on a stone. The second incident was a lot shorter but far more intense in pain. My mum took me to hospital. Whilst in the waiting room, every individual fiber of muscle in my body all spasmed at the same time. Because of this, I wasn't able to breathe due to my diaphragm seizing. Barely able to speak due to having next to no control over my lips. Not a fun experience. I had 2 kidney stones at the same time that wouldn't come out, and hadn't even noticed them for a long period because I have ankylosing spondylitis, which is a terrible form of arthritis that can cause pain as bad as pregnancy during a flare. The doctor said my kidney hole was scarred to heck from it and they couldn't get past the scar tissue. Even with painkillers and a large bag of weed, I was on the floor in pain. Getting an abortion. They stick this metal prod thing in there and crank your vag open. Hurts bad enough, then they stick the pointy suction machine in there and suck it out. Absolute worst pain of my life, physically and emotionally. When the Novocaine hasn't quite done its job yet and the drill hit a nerve. Now I sweat through shirts each time I have to get to cavity filled. I had all 4 wisdom teeth out at the same time, so they knocked me out with general anesthesia. I woke up for the last one. I've hurt myself dozens of times, but the worst pain came from a sinus infection. For hours on end, the right side of my face felt like it was getting hit by bowling balls that were set on fire. You know when people say break a leg, don't break a leg. Dodgeball to the dong in 3rd grade. You have been visited by the safety doggo. Subscribe and you will be safe from all danger for the next 24 hours. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.